On draft fans, welcome back. Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast, a video edition of the show. It's week 2, and what a week 1 it was for us last week. I mean, what a weekend, Labor Day weekend, and just so many great games that we previewed last week, and then obviously just watching it. I mean, Florida State Notre Dame was a hell of a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, we got a great weekend on tap. We're going to get into a couple of games tonight that we'll be watching and focusing on. Kyle says, "What's up? Good morning." Good morning to our man Kyle over there. Does a tremendous job editing our stuff and putting out Bills content all the time. Of course, you guys can get all your Buffalo Bills content over at cover1.net, but don't forget about us over on the draft side because DP and I have been pumping out the work. But DP, good morning, my man. How we doing?
Hey, morning, brother. I'm doing good, man. You know, after some technical difficulties that kind of delayed my arrival, but I'm good, bro. Like it's been pretty much since Thursday. We had the Thursday night football, great game in the NFL, and then we had college football last night with a couple appetizers, I like to call them, and the full slate is today for college football, and again tomorrow, week 1 of the NFL season is officially here. Fully kicks off, so I'm happy, man. I tell everybody, I love you. Do not bother me. Just leave me alone, right? Just leave me alone.
Yep, nope. That's the rules in my house, pretty much for the next 7 months, and then obviously all the way through draft season. They get me for like 3 months out of the year. It's okay, but no, don't forget to set your fantasy lineups tomorrow morning. Yes. I mean, what's better than that? Sitting there having your morning coffee and figuring out your fantasy teams, and really that's what we've been doing today. Except it's not fantasy, it's draft prospects and the matchups that we're looking forward to today with some of the games. I mean, we've got Oregon, Ohio State on tap. We're not going to really preview that game because, I mean, we kind of know who's in that game. We really talked highly of Ohio State last week. And with Oregon, we'll get into a question here, though, with Kayvon Thibodeaux. I want to start there. Is he playing today? Do you have any idea if he's playing? I haven't seen anything. I mean, he was in a walking boot last week, which is unfortunate because I think for some, and for me, I can't speak for you, he is the best defensive player in the draft to me. No disrespect to Kyle Hamilton. I think he's the best prospect in the draft as well. But Kyle Hamilton's right behind him, and we can get into that as well. But Kayvon Thibodeaux, any word on his status for today at home against Oregon or on the road against Ohio State? Excuse me.
I have not seen anything stating that he's playing. The only thing that I remember seeing, and I even looked it up just a moment ago, is that Cristobal said that he was day-to-day with the ankle. So, I mean, for me, I think the only chance Oregon has, don't get me wrong, I love their defense. Noah Sewell, Justin Flo, Verone McKinley, and of course, Kayvon. They have some studs on the defensive side of the ball. But with the quarterback play that they have currently, if Kayvon doesn't play, I think this is going to be a rout. I don't think that offense – Anthony Brown, no disrespect to him, I don't think he is talented enough as a passer to be able to hang with Ohio State. And it's in Ohio State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. So CJ Stroud went through his maturation process last Thursday, playing in Minnesota as a first-time starter on the road, fans rocking house. He's home now. He's comfortable. He knows his sweet spots. He can kick his feet up. He knows where the beer is in the fridge. He knows all those things, right? So without Kayvon, I really don't see Ohio State having a legitimate chance to pull off this victory.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I don't know if he's going to play or not. I'm looking it up right now. He's obviously there. He traveled with the team. He's still considered day-to-day with the ankle sprain. But I'm with you. I mean, I just don't think that offense for Oregon can really keep up with Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State was a little slow rolling at times last week against Minnesota. Once they figured it out, though, I mean, you saw the potential there with C.J. Stroud and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and even Master Teague running the football. That offensive line is juicy up front for Ohio State. So I really think here Oregon with CJ Verdell, Johnny Johnson, Anthony Brown, like you mentioned, some of those players, it's going to be too much for them to overcome Ohio State today, in my personal opinion, especially if Kayvon Thibodeaux does not play. So we'll see obviously what happens. That game kicks off at noon. So about 2.5 hours until kickoff there. But I did want to ask a question before, and I know I'm throwing kind of a curveball at you because I didn't really throw it on the rundown, but I like to have fun because I like to have these organic conversations when we're talking football. And it's nothing crazy, but the Kyle Hamilton interception against Florida State, holy cow, that range. I mean, I bring this up because he's got an opportunity. He's going to play today against Toledo. Kayvon Thibodeau is not going to. I don't think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to play. I'm going to be honest.
Me either.
But with that being said, this gives him an opportunity to be the best player in the draft and really prove himself this week, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, 1 week doesn't justify that, but if he can go a full bill of health all year, you have some injury concerns with Kayvon Thibodeau, you have to toss that question up there. But with Kyle Hamilton, I mean, that interception, man, what did you think of that interception? It was incredible, right?
So, like, he had 2 ridiculous interceptions in this game, but the second one, and that was one of the big things for me when he made my Dame's Dues list of week 1. His plays, the plays he made, truly impacted the outcome of that game. And on that specific play, it was Jashawn Corbin on the, I think it was a running back wheel out of the backfield. The linebacker was carrying him up the sideline, and he basically like kind of passed him off. Now, that's a level of trust to just pass him off like that, not knowing where the heck Kyle Hamilton is, and he's on the opposite hash, opposite side of the formation. And if he is a step slower, Jashawn catches that ball and he's gone for the score, right? He would have gashed him for another big play. But getting the range to get over there. And the thing about it was he didn't catch top speed until he got to the opposite hash. And he had an unreal burst of speed to get from there to the sideline and just undercut that and take that ball from him. It was, dare I say, Ed Reed-esque, right? You know, we seen Ed Reed, the highlights of him just toying with quarterbacks, whether it was Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, playing on one hash, you know, in his back pedal, speed turn, come to the other hash, make the play. And it's just like, it's unreal. That type of athleticism, that type of speed and burst is just, you don't see that every day. Not even in the NFL, because to be honest with you, I would say, you know, we always talk about, everybody talks about the devaluing of the dying breed of the running back, of the elite running back per se. The single high safety, the Ed Reeds, the Earl Thomases, there are not many of those anymore in the league right now.
No, yeah, you're right. And he's got this rare ability to potentially become that guy for a team at the next level. I mean, he's already really becoming that guy for Notre Dame. So, I mean, he's got an opportunity to really show out against Toledo. It wouldn't be surprising if that game ended up being, 45-7 or something like that. And I mean, he might only play the first half, but it's one of those things, man. He's on a mission this year. It feels like it. He wants to be the best defensive player. He wants to be the best defensive back without question. And I don't think you can really argue if he is or isn't. I mean, sure, you could bring in Stingley into the mix out of LSU, but Kyle Hamilton to me is just by far and away the best defensive back in this class. And he would be the best defensive player if it wasn't for Kayvon Thibodeau. But again, he's got that opportunity today and really throughout the rest of the year to prove that to myself and to other draft people out there. So let's get into the preview for week 2. I mean, like I said, week 1 was an incredible first week, some really good games. And I think tonight's going to be really good. I mean, no disrespect again to Oregon, Ohio State or anything like that. But I think some of the games later this afternoon are really where it's at. And these matchups are presented by Underdog Fantasy, the most innovative platform in the fantasy market. So if you guys have not checked this out, you need to do so. If you deposit $10, you get a free $25. So I don't know what you're waiting for. You put $10 into your account, you use the promo code COVER1, you get a free $25 and you get to use Underdog Fantasy. Check them out over at underdogfantasy.com. Again, they're going to give you the best matchups of the week for your fantasy lineups, everything that you're looking for. Again, who's going to go off, who's going to be a potential bust, everything that you're looking for. Go check it out at Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code COVER1 and get that free $25. So let's jump into the early game on our slate here, Iowa versus Iowa State, a rivalry. And it's normally a relatively one-sided matchup, it feels like, but Iowa State has been consistently good over the last couple of years with especially Matt Campbell and Brock Purdy. this is going to be, I think, a good game. Both teams are ranked relatively high this year, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Who's the player that you're watching for, or some of the players that you're watching for? I think I know which way you're going here with Iowa, but I didn't want to steal your guy because you were posting about him on the timeline first.
Oh man, listen, he's a guy we're both high on. Running back Tyler Goodson, compact frame, shifty, one cut type of runner. He fits what they do well, especially running behind their center. I do not know how to pronounce his name though. Is it Tyler Linderbaum?
That is correct, and that's the guy I have listed. So don't go too far.
So yeah, like I'm watching for him in this game. I'm watching for Goodson because at the end of the day, we all know, and it's just the nature of, I guess you could say, Iowa football. The quarterback position has never been their bread and butter, right? It's always been the offensive line, those big hog mollies up front, guys that reset the line of scrimmage, get pushed, and create space for their running backs. Tyler Goodson, if he can have, because I mean, last week I think it was within the first drive, he had like a 80-yard touchdown run or something like that. He took it to the house. So they need to continue to feed him, get him the rock, as well as get him involved in the passing game a little bit. And the guy that I'm looking to try and neutralize him as well, Mike Rose, the middle linebacker over at Iowa State. He's going to be big in this game if they want to contain Tyler Goodson. Like I said, when they start running that stretch, outside zone, inside zone, it's hard to – with guys like Linderbaum on that offensive line, it's hard to get back into the backfield. You got to hope that your defensive line can splice and split through some of those zone blocks. But I'm definitely looking for a big game from Tyler Goodson. And if he is contained, I'm looking for Mike Rose to have a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, Goodson for me is one of those guys that might be the best running back in the Big Ten on the year. I mean, the way it might end up. I mean, Kenneth Walker had a great first week for Michigan State. I've already mentioned Master Teague, and I think everybody kind of expects him to be a big part of the Big Ten this year and of Ohio State. But yeah, I'm with you with Tyler Goodson. I mean, he's such a natural runner. He does everything. It just seems like he does everything right. He's got a natural feel in that offense. But yeah, for me, the big part was Goodson is as good as he's as good as his offensive line, and Linderbaum plays, I think, a big part in that. He's really intriguing. He's only listed at 6'3", 290, so that might be a concern. When you look at that lower weight, you think of Garrett Bradbury from NC State a few years ago, went to the Senior Bowl, saw him up close and personal, and I think he was listed at like 303. He was every bit of that 303, but I mean, lower body, not a big lower body frame and things like that. So Linderbaum, I think, could be the best center in the country, but weight might be somewhat of a concern long-term for him, but he chips to the second level really well. He plays with great pad level, and the snap-to-step quickness that he has, I think, is really impressive. So for Iowa, that could be the difference maker, and it seems to be the difference maker every year for them is how well they can run the football, and I think they can do it pretty well this year, so we'll see what happens. But on the Iowa State side, this was where I was really focusing on, not so much Breece Hall. I think we all know he's got RB1 potential. It's more so the connection of Brock Purdy and Charlie Kolar, their tight end. Yep. Kolar did not play last week. If he can play this week, I think Kolar's got the potential to not have a breakout game, but really put himself out there and say, hey, remember me, I am the top tight end, or potentially the top tight end in this class, because a lot of people thought he was going to go pro last year and he came back. Same thing with Brock Purdy. I think a lot of people thought he was going to go pro and he came back. So Brock Purdy might be limited as far as a quarterback goes. He might not throw the ball the farthest, but he runs the offense the right way. Kind of reminds me of like Sam Ehlinger a little bit out of Texas from last year. Does a really good job with RPOs, runs the ball really well, can throw, those quick passes, intermediate routes pretty well. But Charlie Kolar is a big part of that. And Kolar, I think, is going to be the key as far as what he can do as a run blocker and on the outside there, but also what can he do as a pass catcher. So I don't know if you have anything else to add from the Iowa or Iowa State side, offensively or defensively, or if you want to add anything to my points. But I think this is going to be a good game. I really do. I mean,
yeah, me too.
There's some years where it's like, 28-7 Iowa. This year, I think it could really be 24-21, last second type field goal type of game.
Absolutely. And to your point about Brock Purdy, he doesn't have the physical traits that everyone loves and everything like that. To be, I'm not sure what type of NFL quarterback he'll be, whether he's a backup, practice. I'm not sure just yet. But one thing he does do well is he distributes and runs the offense, similar to a point guard. You know, he may not have the 3-point shot. He may not have just a Westbrook, Russell Westbrook like athleticism. But, you look at a Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo was never a scorer, but he could get anybody on his offense involved. Kendrick Perkins, I'm going to be honest with you, one of the worst centers I've ever seen in my life. And I would literally watch prime Rondo give him easy buckets. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you look for, the game manager has such a negative connotation. It's so bad, but just be a game manager, Brock. Just manage the game. Let Brees, when necessary, and the defense starts to load up on Brees, just take some pressure off of him. You know what I mean? And that's that. I talked about that on Twitter of leading up to the game the other night with Dallas. Like, hey, you want to stop Ezekiel Elliott? You want to load the box on us, whatever the case may be? I'm gonna push you off by throwing I'm gonna test you deep and get you to back up off of us. And that's the same thing Brock has to do. Just distribute, be a good point guard. We all know what Brees Hall is about. And this may be from a run. I gotta throw my running backs in there. This may be the best running back matchup of the weekend. Yeah. With Tyler Goodson and Brees Hall. So for me as a running back and evaluating these two guys, I'm really excited to see this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I believe it kicks off at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll probably be on ABC. That's normally how it goes with that matchup. But shifting our focus over to Texas versus Arkansas. Texas ranked 15th in the country. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think we got an upset brewing here. Arkansas at home. No, it might be in Dallas. Let me double check that. But I
think it is at Arkansas. Let me double check too.
But yeah, no, I'm really pumped about this matchup and how it's going to play out. I mean, Texas has got some players, obviously, but I think Arkansas is loaded defensively. And I'm going to start on the offense for them because I think there's going to be a couple players we get into. Running back Traylon Smith, for me, is an intriguing player. What he can do at 5'9", 190, he runs a lot bigger than that. If you try to tackle around his waist, have fun because he's probably going to break the tackle. He's pretty shifty in the tackles. And when he gets that jump cut, man, if he gets in the open field, he can fly. So yes. Traylon Smith for Arkansas could be a difference maker because their offense isn't necessarily a powerhouse. They're kind of one-dimensional, and I think it runs through him. So he can be the workhorse today, and if he can keep Texas offense off the field, and a lot of that will be because the Arkansas defense, I think, is going to create some turnovers and make some big stops on third down. Traylon Smith is going to be somebody that we look at maybe later tonight and go, hey, who is this kid? And I think he's going to be really impressive.
He's definitely a running back that is on my list. I even talked about, just talking about Brees Hall and Goodson, but this is a nice running back matchup as well with Bijan Robinson over at Sis.
That guy can fly.
I'm telling you, and it goes both ways because for Traylon Smith, it's crazy. They got two Traylons on Arkansas. Traylon Smith, the guy that I'm watching to try and combat him defensively for Texas, DeMarvion Overshown, because former converted safety to linebacker, just ridiculous athlete. Range out of this world, moves sideline to sideline, drops well in coverage, and he knows how to trigger physically downhill. So I'm watching that matchup to see how he able, because even going back a couple years ago when Kenneth Murray was the linebacker over at OU, Texas, was he at OU or was it Texas? Kenneth Murray, it was OU, yeah, OU.
Yeah, OU.
When they played Texas, he had a big part in slowing down big play Devin Duvernay. You know what I mean? So I always look at those defensive, offensive matchups. But, I got to talk about Bijan Robinson, man. And he's just so good. And he's going to be the 2023 running back class is right now it's top heavy, but he's arguably the best back in that class right now. We'll see what Tank Bixby and some of the other guys have to say about it as the next year or two go on. But just watching Bijan against it, that he's the pretty much the engine, in my opinion, for this offense. Now he does have a running mate, Rashawn Johnson. I think he was a converted safety to running back, and you can see with the way he runs. He kind of has a little bit of an upright, kind of high, almost Eric Dickerson type of running style at times. But he knows when to lower the shoulder. He knows when to lay the boom and let his presence be felt and set the tone. But and we're going to, I would throw it out there to throw our guy out there, Jalen Catalon.
Yeah.
If anybody is going to slow down Bijan, it has to be Jalen. Now, granted, he's going to have to make plays in the back end against the pass, but we all know they're going to try to run the ball, throw the ball to Bijan Robinson and let him have a big day. Mm-hmm. Catalon, his physicality, being able to come into the box, he plays 10, 15 yards off, and he has such a burst to come down as a heat-seeking missile. He lays the lumber. He is a hitter, violent striker. So I'm really excited to see just that matchup in general, to see who comes out victorious in there.
Yeah, and I mean Arkansas, it doesn't just start and end with Catalon. I mean, there's Bumper Poole, who plays really well in the box, downhill tackler. Grant Morgan, my guy, have had him on the podcast. He's just a great guy all around. And I'll tell you what, for the his size and just the way he looks, you look at him and you go, man, this guy's not going to do much. He can drop into coverage, and it wouldn't be surprising if he matches up against Robinson a little bit out of the backfield. He reminds me a little bit of Matt Milano, I'm not going to lie. So I think he's pretty solid. But I do want to say real quick with Texas, they got a kid that played right up the street from me at Farmington Hills Harrison, and that's Ovi Ogafo. He's an edge rusher, and he played at Notre Dame. He committed there and was highly recruited there, but he transferred to Texas. And last week he made an impact, made a statement. He had 7 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And his sack, it was 3rd and 8. It's one of those things. I think he doesn't really understand how to use his hands too much yet. But when he's able to pin his ears back and he's able to go get the quarterback, he can do it. He dips his shoulder. He's got a good burst, and he's hungry for that moment. And that's how he did it. 3rd and 8 last week against Louisiana. He had that sack. So I think you keep tabs on him. If Arkansas's offense starts to struggle, or if they play behind and they've got to throw the ball a little bit, I think he could come in and have a big game. So I'm curious. I want to watch more of him. Haven't studied him a ton, but I really want to watch him. Go into a quick comment as we previewed Iowa State about 10 minutes ago. 11, bravo. No love for Heisman finalist Chuck Long or Paul Burmeister, but Iowa is truly where QBs go to learn to manage games. That's accurate.
Absolutely.
Mean, you just look at what happens with some of these QBs. They kind of go to Iowa and I don't know, let the running backs do the work. Moving on from Texas and Arkansas. Again, I like Arkansas in that game, but NC State, Mississippi State, maybe my favorite game on the slate for today. And I think it's simply because, I don't know, I'm an NC State slappy, love the Wolfpack logo on the helmets. They've got maybe the best running back combination in the country in Zonovan Knight and Recchi Pearson. DP, my man, which prospect we looking at here, or which prospects we looking at for this matchup? Because I think it's going to be a fun game.
Oh, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one as well. And, of course, everybody knows my running back, Zonovan Knight, versus that front 7 from Mississippi State. I want to see how productive, because he came out with a bang last week.
Yeah,
what I mean? Over 160 yards rushing, big game. I want to see how him and Ikem Ekwonu got it this time, the left tackle. See how, just because at the end of the day, like Wanu is really, like we talked about last week, he's physical. He's so good against the run, but he has some issues where he has to get better against the pass. So I want to see if they send some pressure his way, kind of mess with his head, send some extra blitzers in his direction to see if he can get out of the block quick enough, get into his back, into his kick slide, and get back there to protect his quarterback. But I want to go to the receiver position. Emeka Emezie versus and I'm looking at this matchup going against those 2 corners over at Mississippi State, Martin Emerson and Emmanuel Forbes. Because last week, Emezie had a big game, and he showed so many different traits: the burst, long speed, physicality, run after the catch, high pointing. He can do it all, right? And it's crazy because the wide receiver position right now coming into this draft, there's a lot of smoke. I keep saying it's a lot of smoke, right? Everybody's Treylon Burks, Garrett, and Olave. And then you hear Michi, from some fans. But Emezie could be one of those guys that really leaps into that day 2 range and lands himself a spot there. So I'm looking forward to that matchup with him because he is so talented. He has a lot of traits that you look for. Like I said, great hands, speed. He runs good routes as well for a guy of his stature. Man, like,
are you on my notes right now? Are you on my notes right now? Come on.
He was on my radar. Shout out to my guy Eugene Holt. Eugene put me on him about a year ago, and I was like, Okay, so yeah, no, this guy's good, but he's so much better this year, in my opinion, than he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, you took both my guys from NC State, Zonovan Knight and Emeka Emezi. I mean, good frame at 6'3", 210. Like you said, he can high point the football. He makes really good adjustments to the football, and really, I mean, I think he's a better route runner than expected. When you look at him and you're like, okay, this guy's probably just gonna not create any separation, get up there,
Right.
high point the football. I mean, he's pretty fluid for a player his size. So I think he could have a big game tonight, and he might be the difference maker. I mean, we're expecting the run game to go off as it should with Pearson and Knight, but Emezi could be somewhat of that difference maker. And for Mississippi State, I'm really curious with wide receiver Makai Polk. He had 19 receptions 2 years ago, 17 receptions last year, but he had 10 receptions last week. So I'm curious, is he going to be somewhat of a difference maker in the short and intermediate areas of the field, maybe have that Elijah Moore type role he had with Ole Miss, just really creating catches and creating opportunities and being, that guy that moves the sticks a little bit for you. So he's worth keeping tabs on their offense. And defensively, edge rusher Randy Charlton and defensive tackle Cameron Young. Charlton's 6'3", 265. Young is 6'3", 310. I'm curious with both of them in the middle of that defense. I mean, if they're going to stop the run game, I think it really starts and ends with those two guys up front. What can they do? Can they get to heels of defensive linemen? Can they win at the point of attack? What can they ultimately do in regards to making some stops there? So I think this is going to be a fun game. It might not necessarily be the best game to some people, but for me, and I think for DP, I think there's a lot of prospects to pay attention to, and I think it's going to be ultimately a really fun one. So you got anything else to add to NC State before we get into an intriguing quarterback matchup that we're going to preview here in a moment?
Yeah, so for really for me, it's two guys. I'm looking at the receiver, Austin Williams for Mississippi State, 6'3", 200 pounds, big guy. He kind of inside outside versatility. I don't see how he plays. I believe he's a redshirt junior or senior. But and then Charles Cross, the left tackle over at Mississippi State, 6'5", 305. He came in when he arrived on campus, he was 270. So he's added weight. And he works well. I mean, especially for you look at like a Cliff Kingsbury offense, that air raid kind of fast paced passing attack. I like him a lot. And it's crazy because this offensive line group, you could say, is for this draft, it's pretty deep and it's a lot of talent there. So I think he's a guy that is kind of falling down the cracks a little bit. Like people are kind of forgetting about him, but he's another guy I'm looking forward to. And they have a running back. I didn't write his name. I think it's Jaquavius Marks from Mississippi State. Took over for Kylan Hill last year after Kylan Hill went ahead and just opted out after that one game, which I don't blame him dealing with what he was dealing with. But so yeah, Jaquavius Marks is another guy for Mississippi State. Charles Cross and Jaquavius Marks running the ball, getting the ball out to their talented receivers. Like I said, 10 catches in week one. Let's see if they can repeat on that.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Moving our focus over to kind of the QB1 conversation from last week and really the one quarterback I'm really excited to watch today, Malik Willis versus Troy. Malik Willis, I watched him a little bit last week, really my first viewing of him. And I know you've talked really highly of him. I know some other people have talked really highly of him. He went 15 to 23 for 217 yards and a score. He also had 55 yards on the ground with the score last week in a win. But really what impressed me was one of these throws to the left side of the field. I mean, he just put some serious zip. Receiver made a good catch, don't get me wrong, but he's got some intriguing tools. And as we see some of this QB1 conversation on the timeline of last week, some guys had some off games, or we need to write this quarterback off, this, and that. Malik Willis has the eye roll there, the eye roll emoji. And Malik Willis, though, man, he's got an opportunity. I mean, if it's true where people are saying, hey, these guys aren't playing up to par like Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, Malik Willis might have an opportunity to dethrone them. He might do so with another showing today against Troy. Your thoughts on Willis in this matchup and ultimately what he brings to the table as a quarterback?
Yeah, and this matchup for me, I'm really watching him out of all prospects, right? So the thing that I look forward to to watching with him is just consistency with his base, with his footwork.
Mhm.
Is it clean? Is it quick? Is it efficient? He has the arm talent. He is the most dynamic quarterback in college football. Like, from a dual threat standpoint, he can gash you for 100, 150. He can also throw for 280, 300 yards as well. And the thing about it is he's playing on a team that doesn't have the 5-star talent of, Alabama, Clemson. He doesn't have those type of receivers or running backs. He does have a solid little line and solid run game as well. But I'm watching him. Because one thing about him, we know that he can play out of structure. We know he can make plays with his feet, moving out of the pocket, making throws on the move. Like, he has ridiculous arm talent. But I just, like last week, I want to see that continue, making plays within the structure of the offense, showing that accuracy, getting through his reads, making sure he's not holding and sitting on one read. He did that a lot last year. And I just want to see him get better with that. But he's such a talented prospect. And I've said it, and I know a lot of people, there's Sam Howell fans out there. There's Carson Strong is the hot name of QB1. I've seen so much flip-flopping on my timeline where people had Rattler, preseason Rattler QB1, then out of nowhere, oh, it's Carson Strong before he even plays a game. And I'm just like, wow, okay, like that's new. But all right, cool. So for me, I've been on record from a talent standpoint. Spencer Rattler is one of the top in his class. He's QB1 still to me. Mm-hmm. But there's one guy that can knock him off that perch with a big season. It is Malik Willis.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I think just from what I've seen, I mean, he's got that natural talent. I mean, he can really put some zip on the football. Like I said, you mentioned he can operate off script and off structure. And you're right. I mean, the mobility is there in and out of the pocket. And I think he can obviously have a big game against Troy. I mean, Auburn transfer, there's definitely some talent there. And I think there's some talent separation. There's a gap between the talent from Malik Willis and some of the talent he's playing against. That's no disrespect to the guys he's playing against. But again, I think he is the best football player on the field when he takes the field on Saturday against some of his competition and with his teammates. But I mean, again, no disrespect there, but he's got a chance to ball out today. But yeah, you bring up Sam Howell, you bring up Spencer Rattler, and that's where I wanted to shift our focus into this conversation about our QB1s. We both had Spencer Rattler as our top quarterback going into this season. And I mean, I don't know what the overreaction was with him. People were acting like he fell off a cliff or something. I mean, he was 30 for 39 for 309 yards. He had a touchdown. He did have 2 interceptions, but I mean, I thought he operated the offense pretty efficiently. Maybe it wasn't as open as it needed to be, as we've liked to see their offense. It maybe didn't have as many big plays as you're used to seeing. But again, I thought he was efficient. I think this is more of an overreaction than anything else with Spencer Rattler. And I mean, give him this week and next week and just the weeks to follow. I think he's going to continue to build off of week 1.
I'm gonna bring up an interesting point because a lot of me, I'm all about context, and I'm somebody that thinks differently than the masses, especially the media. A lot of times, do you remember? I think it was 2 years ago. Remember Trevor Lawrence went like 6 games straight with interception. Like he had a really rough start. He was not reading defenses. He was trying to put the ball into ridiculous windows that he shouldn't have. He was reckless with the football. And I think he had like 6 or 7 interceptions within the first couple weeks. But we didn't hear this overreaction, right? It was, well, the offense is gimmicky. It was a lot of excuses. My thing is this: Spencer Rattler, don't get me wrong. And I think a big part of that is people look at Tulane like they should blow them out of the water. Okay, that's fine, but the games aren't played on paper, right? You got to go out there and you have to play the game between the lines. Tulane came to play. Tulane is also, from Louisiana. They just can't, have a Hurricane Ida hit their area. So these guys came in with a different mindset than just Oklahoma. These guys came in with a chip on their shoulder. They were displaced from their school. They, angry, frustrated with what's going on. So, and they played like it. They played well. Shout out to that quarterback as well. He went toe to toe. He went took a shot. Like he took a hit early in the game as well when he ran the ball, but he came back in and he played a strong game. So for me, it's just the overreactions, man. I could see if this was week 9 and this has been going on all season for Rattler, for Come on now. Like, the same thing with DJ Uliungalele. Like, we watched, mind you, and I want people to understand, before you go into some of these games, look up who they're playing. Georgia's defensive line is full of savages. Like,
yeah, they're stacked.
Those are savages on that defensive line. Adam Anderson, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean at linebacker. Like, I was watching some of the All-22 yesterday, matter of fact, and the cross dog blitz that they were running and throwing at that freshman right guard and center pairing. Listen, Kirby Smart knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Kirby Smart knew what he was doing, and he was getting pressure. And there were times where DJ didn't have time to survey the field. It was 1, 2, 3, hit, pressure. You know what I mean? So it's like, we have to put everything into context. I know it's cool to have these weird takes and hot takes on Twitter and be funny. That's fine. But understand that it's 1 week, guys. Let's not overreact. Carson Strong made a ridiculous throw made a couple ridiculous throws last weekend. He also was staring down receivers, not moving the safety with his eyes. He was basically giving telltales of where he was going with the football, and that's why he had an interception. To be honest with you, the safety made a play similar to Kyle Hamilton from the far hash. He went all the way to the opposite sideline, made a big interception, which would have been a touchdown if he just held that safety in the middle of the field on that hash mark. But, Malik Willis had a great game. Desmond Ridder had a great game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Jack Cohn, man. Listen, Jack Cohn came out there first game, and they shut down our guy Kyron Williams. They made sure he wasn't going to get anything on the ground. Yeah. Jack Cohn said, "That's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna Steve Nash it to my Amari Stoudemire. I'm gonna go ahead and do my thing with Michael Mayer, and we're gonna put up some numbers." And he was phenomenal. So again, now, is Jack Cohn QB1? No, he's not. Like, and anybody that says that, they're lying. So let's just relax. Give it time. Just give it time.
Yeah, look, I'm not too worried about Rattler, and I'm not really worried about some of these guys that we're talking about. We do got a couple of comments though from 11 Bravo. I'm very high on Carson Strong. Where are you two on Grayson McCall out of Coastal Carolina and that kid Jason Bean at Kansas? I see a poor man's RG3. I'll be honest, I haven't seen Jason Bean outside of last night, so I'm not going to make any assumption there. But Grayson McCall, I'm pretty high on. I think he can be a sleeper in this class. I think he runs, obviously the offense really helps him, but he runs that offense efficiently and he executes it at a high level. So I like the mobility from him. He reminds me a little bit of like if you say poor man's RG3, well, McCall reminds me of like a poor man's Josh Allen. I don't like throwing pro comps out because I like guys to be themselves, but he's somebody that we're going to definitely break film on and really break down what he does, because one, that offense is fun as hell to watch, but two, he, like I said, he plays at a really high level. And then just real quick on Carson Strong, I like Carson Strong. I see a lot of the tools that everybody else is seeing, but at the same token, like, he's not really playing much of a competition. Like tonight, he's playing Idaho State. You should go off. But next week, you're playing Kansas State. So the next two games are going to be really big. Kansas State, Boise State, those will be big games for him. And if he can play well there, those will be the resume games. I think Romeo Doubs is a big asset to him, and as it should be. Every quarterback should have a weapon to his disposal, and they should have weapons around him. And we're going to get into a certain quarterback that lost some weapons, and we're going to go into some of the overreactions with him. But I'll let you answer that question. What's your thoughts on? I think you already kind of talked about Carson Strong, but Grayson McCall and Jason Bean.
No, I like Grayson McCall as well. Like I said, the offense does help him, but he's talented. He can move the ball with it. He throws with good touch as well, especially over the middle between the hashes. I like that with him. And he has a nice arm, mobile, can give you some in the power run game, similar to Josh Allen. So I'm definitely high on him. And for Bean, so yeah, I didn't watch much of Bean. I didn't really know much about him coming into last night. But some of my timeline said that he in 100, he was a 10.37 guy in a 100-meter dash. That's he's playing quarterback. Like, if he becomes a polished, if he becomes some polished quarterback where he's mentally above the meter and he's throwing with accuracy and he can beat you with his arm consistently, and you think about him running a 10.37, he has that type of juice in his lower body. Like, yeah, that's a problem. Like, that's a clear-cut problem. So I'm excited to watch the development of this kid because he is he's talented, and he played solid football last night. They were just overmatched. Like Coastal Carolina has a really good team. And then I see that Bravo left another comment. Michael Pratt, that was the quarterback from Tulane that I mentioned earlier, played a good game. I really gained a lot of respect for him. Like I said, toughness, gritty. I really like him. Really like what he showed last week. So he was accurate with the football, got the ball to his playmakers. And the thing about it was, mentally, he never wavered. Like, doesn't matter what was going on. They were down multiple scores. He kept fighting, kept pushing, kept throwing, and got them back into the game where they were really close to pulling off an upset.
I thought you were going to go to the direction of Coastal Carolina's defense, and you were going to bring up Teddy G, and I was going to have to get salty because he called me a nerd on the internet. But
yeah, he retweeted my tweet last night. I saw it.
Oh, did he?
I was like, I wonder if he sees, if he saw your response to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever. That's
funny.
That's the kind of guy he is, though. After every game on Twitter, on social media, making sure people are talking about him and his mullet. So it is what it is. But going back to QB1s, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's the biggest overreaction so far, or maybe it's the biggest conversation so far. Sam Howell versus Virginia Tech, a loss. 17-14. And I mean, let's be honest, he didn't play great. He didn't play great by any means. He was 17 of 32 for 208 yards, 1 score, and 3 picks. He struggled again without his playmakers. We talk about it with Carson Strong. Every quarterback needs a playmaker to his disposal. And with him, I mean, he lost 4 big weapons from Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, Daz Newsome, and Deami Brown. They're all gone. And they need somebody to step up. I don't know if that's going to happen, but Sam Howell, tough environment, road loss, bad for the resume. Does he bounce back? And really, what was your thought from week 1 on him?
Like I said, one thing that I noticed with him because of the lack of weapons, what's up, Hussam? Like it felt like he was pressing. Like it felt like he was just trying to make the play every time. And don't get me wrong, I know like he has the receivers had some drops, so it's hard to say, hey, just trust your weapons when your weapons are kind of dropping passes and, some of them, just not running the routes at the right depth. There's just a lot of just separation to me offensively for them. Couldn't really get the ground game going. Offensive line seemed a little outmatched and overmatched by the defensive front. It just Virginia, come on, guys. Virginia Tech usually they have a good defense like every year. Like that's one thing. That's a history for them that goes on for decades.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the main thing is just he has to slow down, play at a different pace. Like you're not going to score 7 every play. Yes, that's the goal of every drive, but that's not the goal of every play. So take what the defense is giving you. Because one of the main issues I had with him last year, when he had Michael Carter, he didn't check the ball down. He didn't look for his outlet underneath. When these DBs are going deep with your receivers, typically you got a linebacker on a versatile weapon like Michael Carter. That's your mismatch. Attack it. I always talk about it. And it was something I talked about with Baker Mayfield this offseason and with Kevin Stefanski and them doing it with the Browns. Against the Ravens, they had Kareem Hunt. They knew that the Ravens linebackers are not good in coverage. They can't man cover. What do? They motion Kareem wide, run it out and up. You find the mismatch, you ID it, and you attack it. And that's what Sam Howell has to do for me from a mental aspect is take your game to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. Because, yes, your weapons aren't the best. Number 11, it will probably be his leading receiver. His last name is Downs. I forget the first name. But that's probably going to be his top receiver. The main thing for him is, like I said, slow down. Go, one snap at a time, one play at a time. Pre-snap. I'm not sure. And that offense doesn't help him either, in my opinion. Similar to Trevor Lawrence, the offense isn't the most pro-ready. So in pro style, per se. So I want to put the brakes on the overreaction for him. I want to give him more time. And I'm going to be honest with you, to be truly honest, if he does struggle this season overall, right? He doesn't go top 10 to a bad team. Say he falls to Washington. Like
that's not a bad
That's
thing.
A really good situation to fall into. You know what I mean? You got a good running back room, plethora of receivers, a good tight end, good old line, great defense. I'm just saying,
I think the thing that gets me the most is, can he bounce back? Yes. my main question is, will he? And for
Yeah.
me, I don't think he is. I don't think he will. I think that's going to be a trickle-down effect from here. I'm not saying like he's going to set the record for most interceptions in a season and he's just going to be god-awful. Like, he's going to have some bright spots. But they're like, the sample size is relatively big of what he can do and I think what he can't do. And processing has kind of been the thing. Like, he goes too fast through progressions. Processing is just kind of off. And I don't know if it's going to get better. Is it going to get better in an NFL locker room with NFL coaches and NFL talent around him? Yeah, it could. But I don't know. I mean, he's done some great things at the university, right? 2019, he had 38 touchdowns, almost 3,700 yards passing. Last year, 3,600 yards passing, 30 scores. This year, that's kind of the expectation. But if this is the performance that we're going to see, and again, I get it. Vatek, great defense historically, all of it. I get it all. But ultimately, is there going to be some cakewalks in there? Yeah, but you're still going to have to play some teams this year. You're still going to have to play your ACC opponents and what's on your schedule. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to play Clemson. You're going to have to play Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke, Miami, Florida State, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, NC State. Like, it's not going to be a cakewalk for them. And it's like, if you're struggling on week one, I don't know, man. Like, I just really have some questions. Sure, things can develop, things can manifest over time throughout the season, but I am a little concerned. And I think maybe there was an overreaction of, hey, this guy's not QB1. The talent's there, but I don't know, man. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. Maybe that's a little hot takey for some people. I don't think it is. I mean, I've always kind of had these question marks and doubts with him, like in the pit of my stomach with my gut. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, like there's something off, and maybe we're just hyping him up because you see the talent, but when he's off, he's off. And I don't know can he bounce back again? Yes. Will he? I think long-term, no, I don't think he will. And you're right. Will he fall down draft boards? Maybe he falls to 23 or something and he goes to Washington. That's a great spot to land in. No doubt about it. But I mean, I don't know. Time will tell. And the conversation of him being a top pick compared to being maybe a top 20 pick, I think that's the conversation now.
Yeah, I think from a offensive from a team production standpoint, I don't see them winning a whole lot of games, even in the ACC. I think Pitt knocks them off. Kenny Pickett and that defense are going to be tough to knock out. Yeah. DJ and Clemson are going to rebound. It's going to be Virginia's defense is usually just like Virginia Tech, usually they have good defenders as well, and they play hard-nosed football. I don't think they're going to be a great team per se. The main thing for him is, okay, in the midst of this tumultuous season, in the midst of this tough situation, can I, Sam Howell, walk into every game and improve, right? Because the main thing, like I said, he has the arm strength. He has the mobility. My comp for him was always Baker Mayfield. Like, he reminds me so much of Baker from just a mannerism standpoint, throwing motion, like just physically. He reminds me so much of Baker Mayfield. But at the same time, again, and Baker had his issues with granted, he's been in like 4 different systems since he got into the NFL, so that doesn't help. But Baker's has his issues, and we saw last year, especially down the stretch, he knows his offense now, and the offense was humming. For Sam, it to me is all about the neck up, man. Like, we know how talented you are physically. Can you, from a mental standpoint, can you take that next step, right? Can you elevate your offense and get your guys the football consistently? And one of the big things for me when talk about accuracy and ball placement, I always talk about, I'm looking for, especially in those crossing, coming across the field, are you throwing your guys, not just throwing them open, but are you throwing them the football, or is the ball placement where they can catch and run? So that's my main thing. That interception he had to end the game was god awful. Like, it was terrible. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, don't get me wrong. I get it. You were pressured all game. You've been getting hit. He was not comfortable. But then that doesn't look good either, because that's one of the things scouts are looking for. Can you stand in the fire? Can you stand there? Know you're going to get hit, like I think it's Ellerby from Western Michigan last week against Michigan. Aiden Hutchinson double swipe, quick win off the ball, and he's coming full speed. Ellaby knows he's about to get hit. He sidearms that thing to a slant route and for a first down. I'm like, that's good. That's good stuff there. That's tough football. Mentally, he knows I'm gonna take the hit, but it is what it is. But for me, I don't see that with Sam, and I need to.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing. Like, people are afraid to like throw these things out there. They're just like, oh no, he's so good, blah 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 blah, and they just let it go. And it's like, you're right, he is good, but there's a lot of flaws to his game. I think when you look at some of the other quarterbacks, and when there was comparing him versus Spencer Rattler, I really thought like it's not that close. I think Spencer Rattler's a way better player. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's 1 week, a long season. I hope he proves us wrong. I'm never going to root for a player to fail to have myself be right or yourself right or whatever. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the QB1 stuff, it's always fun after 1 week because you have one that plays really well and you should give him the Heisman after 1 week. And then you have a couple that struggle and you're like, oh, this guy's never going to get drafted. So we'll see what happens. I do want to say 11 Bravo. Great comments here. Kafri Brown should improve with more playing time. He's a big Amari Barno fan. And I was sitting here and I'm like, who is 11 Bravo? And I know who it is. It's Bill Carroll. Shout out to him. He's awesome on Twitter. He gives us those 3 a.m. retweets because it's like midnight Pacific time where he's out there on the West Coast somewhere. So appreciate what he does. He's a great follow on Twitter. But we'll end it with a quick topic of just one player. I know we got into a lot of players. And we're reaching that hour mark, but between all the games tonight, I mean, you got Pac-12 after dark, you've got the noon kickoff. There's so much to get into today. And obviously we can't get into every player. We would love to, but who's the one player? And if we've already talked about him, you can bring him back up, but who's the one player today that you're really circling it on and you're like, hey, I really want to see this guy perform. I can't wait to watch him later today. If you need a little bit of time, I'll go first. If you want me to go first, because
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, because the guy that I've got is Devin Lloyd out of Utah. I think this linebacker is got some potential to potentially be maybe the top linebacker in the group. Where I think linebackers got some, I don't want to say underrated or not really known guys. I mean, there's just some uncertainty within the position in this class, but he's 6'3", 235. He had a big first week with 12 tackles. He had a sack. He had a pick. He's playing BYU. It's always a good game between Utah and BYU, and he's going to match up against one of your guys, Tyler Algier, the running back out of BYU. So we'll see what happens within this matchup. I mean, he's got an opportunity at a late night game, national TV, to really put himself on the map, Devin Lloyd. So I like him quite a bit. I'm going to be paying attention to that game tonight.
No, definitely. That's going to be a really good matchup over there. Especially with Tyler Algier and that stretch run game that they run over there in BYU. I'm intrigued to see how that game plays out. For me, man, because it's a lot of prospects, of course. But I want to go USC, man. Sticking with the quarterbacks, Keaton Slovis. Last week, he wasn't great last week. He was solid. He was good. Drake, his guy Drake London was out there just a man amongst boys last week, right? So they play tonight. I want to consistently see what everyone else has been seeing for Keaton Slovis. 2019, he was really good. I watched his tape, watched every game. He was really good 2019. 2020, I know a lot of people said that he had a shoulder injury. I was not, and it wasn't just a physical issue that I had. It was more so mental, similar with Sam Howell. I was watching him just not read the field, throw into windows he shouldn't have even tested. I'll watch his receivers get open, and like I said, he's not going through his reads, so he's not finding the open receiver. So he's just staring down one guy. I want to see him take the next step mentally, process what's going on quicker. And like I said, you have weapons. Taj Washington, the Memphis transfer, out there just, dunking on folks last week. You know what I mean? And like I said, Drake Jackson being that inside-outside threat, like, it's fantastic to watch this offense. Then they have the Texas transfer in Keontae Ingram. Their offensive line is good. They got Drake Jackson on the opposite side with the freshman. I forget the young freshman edge rusher's name, but he's electric. Like they have a team that can compete. Mm-hmm. The key to this team, and honestly, even trying to make it to the playoffs and being a contender, is all rests on Keaton Slovis. So I'm watching him tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a great week too of college football. Again, like I said, I think we could sit here. I say it every week. We could sit for 5-6 hours talking
Right.
prospects, watching ball. But life and time is a thing, and we probably have to get back to it. So we appreciate everybody joining us as always here on the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast live on YouTube every single week. For the time being, Saturday mornings, 9:30 in the morning. You can join us for about an hour to preview the day of the games that are on tap. As always, we're presented by Underdog Fantasy. Again, the most innovative platform in the fantasy market. Fantasy football kicked off Thursday for most of your leagues. Maybe not yet. Maybe you didn't have anybody going, so you got tomorrow. So if you got some uncertainty with your lineup, you don't know who to put in your flex, you don't know who to start at QB, go to underdogfantasy.com. They will give you all the tips, all the clues, everything that you need. New users, if you deposit $10, you get a free $25 when you use the promo code COVER1. So be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. You, of course, can find us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at DP_NFL. Smash the follow button on Twitter. DP, you got anything else to add, my man, here as we close up shop?
Not really, man. Just enjoy these games, today and tomorrow. Like I said, I'm looking forward to a lot of football. And hey, like I said, with quarterback one, watch Desmond Ridder. He's going against Murray State, so he should have put up some good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and props to Cincinnati, part of the Big 12, so it's going to be interesting. I wish Ridder would have been around long enough to play in that conference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. But we'll see what happens. Again, like I said, you can find us on Twitter. You can find Cover One NFL Draft Podcast on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can find us here on YouTube, on the Cover One YouTube page. Again, we'll do this every single week, and we're going to get into more fun stuff as the season continues to move along, and we get that all 22. So until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. We're out.